So today we're going to talk about soil erosion, and yeah, among all the topics that we're going to learn about soil and its degradation topic, there are so many ways the soil can be degraded. So this will be the first, okay, the first of the three ways a soil can be degraded, and we begin with the physical way how a soil will be degraded. Well, in the following 3 more weeks, in the next 3 more weeks after Raya break, we're going to come back and cover the rest of the topics talking about soil pollution. And that will be more on the chemical side. Now, you might be thinking that that's crazy, right? There's a biological pollution. Well, I don't need to give you too many examples, guys. Think of what we are happening right now, COVID. So if you have COVID in the soil, yeah, that's one way, biological pollution. So bringing back to what we're going to talk today, we're going to talk about physical degradation. And there are so many examples, actually, a soil can be degraded either by compaction. Compaction is the most common lah. Wherever you have humans, kan, or any heavy engine, heavy vehicles that moves around on the surface of the soil, compaction is one lah. Okay. Desertification means the conversion of a fertile land into desert. Desert is primarily mineral soil. You cannot say that it's sand. No. Desertification means that there's no organic at all mineral phase. So what you can see in Arab Saudi, Saudi Arabia, that's one. But why we're not going to concentrate on desertification is that I don't remember Malaysia have any desert. Oh, why? Malaysia, especially Peninsula, maybe even Sabah and Sarawak, the land mass is too small. There's no way you're going to have desert. And let's not forget, Malaysia, second highest rainfall nation in the world. So no way like you can desert. But because of the high rainfall, we're going to have erosion. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. And when you talk about erosion, primarily that will be covering water erosion. What not? Malaysia, high rainfall. Wind as well, although wind is not that significant, but let's not forget, we also have a lot of coastal area that is exposed to high velocity wind coming from open ocean. I mean, I don't need to talk too much lah. Whoever stays in Pantai Timur, the east coast of Malaysia, you know lah exactly, yeah, all the strong wind. So let's talk about the difference between soil erosion and landslide. Now, actually, these two were commonly used together whenever you hear some kind of news or whatever. But landslide, most of the time, you hear the most like in the news. In Bahasa Melayu, you call it tanah runtuh. So that is actually a phenomenon where the landscape, the entire landscape of a soil surface actually move away from its original location. Now, what causes it is the erosion. Yeah. So that is the difference between landslide and erosion. Erosion causes landslide. Okay. But if you look carefully at the definition, soil erosion sounded like weathering, except one difference. After this, I'm going to show you. Now, this definition technically shows you the mechanics. How does the erosion happen? Starting from dislodgement, then continue with transport. Once they're dislodged, they come off, and then they're transported away with the movement of water or wind. And then after that, they will be deposited. You see, erosion happens in 3 steps. I'm going to go to it in detail. Yeah. But of course, when I talk about erosion, the main concern will be the loss of productivity. Now, when I talk about productivity, there are so many examples. Now, it's quite safe to say most of the soil erosion is caused by human activity. There are so many human activities that can start this off. It begins with the loss of surface cover. Now, when I talk about surface cover, I'm talking about the original surface cover. I'm not talking about when you cover with tar, you cover with cement. That is not the original. When we talk about the original cover, we're talking about virgin forest. The forest that you can see exactly in Taman Negara, the National Forest Reserve. That is the original cover. These cover are usually very thick forest cover. The highest trees can be up to several tens or not hundreds meters, several tens meters. And these are usually high trees, and the composition of these vegetation are so diverse. You have very tall trees, the middle range, and also the short one. But of course, like in forest, whoever who went to forest for hiking, for jungle trekking, or maybe for camping, you'll notice like in forest, there's no grass, virtually no grass. It's quite safe to say. Yeah. Those are the ones that can really protect your soil. You see, even forests with the very lacking of grass, they don't have too much trouble in erosion because why? The trees. You have the trees, it's quite safe to say erosion will be very minimal. I did not say there's no erosion, yeah? There will be erosion, but very minimal. So when does all this erosion or soil degradation begins? It begins with the deforestation. Yeah? So there's so many reasons lah for deforestation. Now in Malaysia, if you want to know lah, most of our forest is deforested for agriculture. I think you also know. What is that? That crop. Yalah, palm oil. Malaysia cut down trees for palm oil. I don't need to go too far away lah. Go to Pahang. I think Pahang is the most active lah currently. Probably not so much this time because palm oil the price dropped. So no. And then of course, fuel wood gathering. This one is quite minimal because what usually fuel wood um, it's only happen in a few areas, not in forests as far as I know. Most of the Malaysian forests is being cut down for wood, but not fuel wood. There's a difference between wood and fuel wood. Fuel wood is you cut it down, you make it a wood, and then you burn it as a source of fuel. But Malaysia don't do that. Because in Sarawak especially, the wood is cut down because those wood are high quality woods for furniture, for construction. So those are construction wood. Now, I cannot say there's no forests are being cut down, but if you want to know in Malaysia, the wood that is being cut down as fuel wood is coming from Paya Bakau. I think you should know what is Paya Bakau, from swamp area. You know the charcoal? Yeah, that is one. Yeah. And that also will still cause erosion, but on the mangrove, not forest, yeah. Still, they're going to cause soil degradation. And then you can see industry, grazing. I would say this one. I mean, this percentage, I disagree, because I don't remember Malaysia have too many cows. Overgrazing is only happen when you have a lot of dairy farm, like cows, goats. As far as I know, there are only two major ones. One in Kota Tinggi, the other one is in Sabah somewhere. Ranau. These are the places, yeah. Not 35%. If you say overgrazing, I would say maybe around 10% of population. The rest of it is due to deforestation, agriculture, and industry. Yeah? So this is exactly what you can see in the erosion. Most of the time, the erosion happens intensively on hill slope because why? The velocity of rain, they come down very fast. And as a result, this is what you see. One small patch, it will going to expand. And this is what you see, usually erosion on the farmlands, because they open up the soil, then they plant very junior, very, very small and short trees that cannot protect the entire surface. And as a result, when you look closer, you have all these small longkang. It's not longkang, we call it. We have a different name. After this, you'll see. Landslide prone areas are usually concentrated on areas that have high rainfall. Yeah, Taiping. Taiping is the second highest after there's one place near Kuching, Sarawak. Kuching, Sarawak is the highest. Second is Taiping, the wettest place in Malaysia. And also it happens near the foothills actually, because you need slope area to have this landslide. Otherwise, when you're on flat lands, there's not much of landslide. You have erosion, but no landslide. So this is to bring you some examples, terrible landslide events that happened in Peninsular Malaysia. I believe there are many more in Sabah and Sarawak, but I don't have that picture. Now, this one happens in Serendah, Selangor, northern part of KL. And in that place, almost the entire village is swept through. So you can see this small car is just like Mainan, like Greater Mainan, but actually it's not. Now, why this happened is because it happens when there is a housing area built on a reclaimed ex-mining site. So that mining site usually previously is filled with sand, and then they just tambak. They tambak. That means uh, they add more topsoil. These topsoil are no longer sand. These are like red clays, forest soil. They cover on top and then they build houses. But little that they know, this ex-mining site has established underground river. So what happened is over a long stretch of time, that underground river becomes bigger and bigger, and this is the result lah. The entire village under that underground river is swept aside. And this is another picture lah. So what do you think? If this happened, then the main reason why you're so concerned with landslide is because loss of life, loss of property, money, and we still haven't touched about agriculture. So these are the things like what concerns us the most. This is happening in 2014 at Jalan Greek, Kelantan. This is a highway between Kelantan and Pahang, if not mistaken. If not Kelantan Pahang or Kelantan Perak, I forgot. So it's so scary because imagine that if you're inside this car or inside this lorry, God knows what is going to happen for you to you like if you come down. But that is not the worst lah. The worst is actually in the last slide I'll show you with probably the links to the video that you can watch. Okay, so now you know why we want to learn this topic, right? Because you are living on top of the soil. You better make sure that you don't have soil degradation in way of erosion. So we're going to learn what actually causes erosion in the first place. Now you need energy, you need a force. You need a force that can move this soil. Now usually this force or this energy comes in the form of wind or water. Now wind, it applies when you have an area so open and exposed to strong wind. And if you talk about Malaysia, this only applies in seaside, East Coast particular, because East Coast Peninsula, the Pantai Timur is facing Laut Cina Selatan, the South China Sea, and that is open ocean. So whenever you have typhoon from the open ocean, usually typhoon or strong wind comes from the open ocean and they blows inland. So places like Kelantan, Terengganu, and also Pahang, they are the first to suffer because there's nothing that stop this wind. But if you look at the peninsula, the west coast of Peninsular Malaysia, like Lembah Klang, the Klang Valley. Why Lembah Klang doesn't have too strong wind? Because we have Selat Melaka. After Selat Melaka, you have Sumatra. That island actually blocks a lot of strong wind. So that's why. I mean, the west coast is more prosperous because we don't have too much of damaging erosion from the wind. But we cannot run away like that because Malaysia, no matter where you go, there's a lot of rain. So it's the rain erosion that we're going to talk about. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave this to you because I will going to touch a few of the key points here referring to the specifics. So these are the general idea. Why are we concerning about soil erosion apart from the loss of property, money, property? It's due to the loss of nutrient. Yeah, you need nutrient to have a proper agricultural activity. So which is why it's like a bummer, because most of the Westerners, they open the lands and they plant something and they ended up no nutrient. Why? Because erosion happened. So they add more fertilizer. In the end, that whole farmlands, after they cut down the trees, becomes a desert. Fortunately, it doesn't happen in Malaysia, but it happens all the time in places like USA and Australia. But here's is what we're going to talk about in general. So these are the basic. What is topsoil, what is subsoil, and what is bedrock? I believe we talked about this many times last week. And just to touch a little bit. Usually, erosion happens in topsoil. But sometimes subsoil erosion also may happen under some very special circumstances. So this topsoil usually going to have like erosion on the upper layer around 100 to 200 mm. So that's 10 to 20 centimeters. But do you still remember topsoil is the most important? Because why? That is where you have all the microorganisms. You have all the soil organisms that recycle the nutrient. And that is where you also have a lot of organic matter, the source of the nutrient. So imagine if this source are washed away, where's the nutrient? That is why. Yeah? So erosion is not just the structure, it's about the fertility as well. Now, before we even continue, let's differentiate between erosion and also weathering. Now, technically speaking, like erosion and weathering, they are virtually the same, except one. Now, if you still remember, weathering actually is due to the wind, the rainfall, the temperature, and so many factors that actually can break down larger rocks into smaller soil particles. And okay, that's one. Exactly the same happened for erosion. Now, the main difference between erosion and weathering is that erosion will carry the soil particles away. That means there is movement away from its original location. That is the only difference. And you have to know, lah, yeah? So the difference between erosion and weathering, done. Now, let's talk about the natural process. Now, just now I say even forests itself, forests also have erosion, but very minimal. Now, we cannot say there's no erosion because as long as rain comes down, you will have erosion, but very minimal. So minimal that you don't even notice there is an erosion. It is like you look at the forest today, 10 years after that, still the same. But you will notice that some of the soil actually being carried away slowly. Yeah? Now, that is what we call a natural process or natural erosion condition. Now, moving on to the other one. This is the damaging one. We call it uh, anthropogenic erosion or human or the one that causes by human activity. So just like what I said to you just now, the first thing that will happen after you chop down trees for deforestation for whatever purpose is the erosion. It happens in small scale and then it will proceed later on. So these are the examples lah. What happened in USA, I believe, because USA is just open in 1980s, 1950s. After why what 1950s? I just realized that these are the years after World War II. All the war veterans, they have nowhere to go. The government of Western side, they send all their soldiers to farmlands and they give them a piece of land. So these are the times where erosion happens intensively because what? All those soldiers, they don't know agriculture. They're just starting to learn about agriculture. So a lot of them, they don't know how to take care of the soil. Soldiers, I mean, they hold guns, kan? Not not the chankol or whatever. So those are the times erosion happens extensively, yeah, in US and also in Australia. So geological erosion, also other names called natural erosion. These are the one that happens naturally. So don't forget, sometimes question might not use natural erosion, they use geological erosion. Is actually the same meaning, yeah. And then the other one, man-made erosion, or the other one is accelerated. Now, why do we call it accelerated is because when human intervention comes in, the erosion happens much faster because they will usually take away the surface cover of the forest, and that accelerate the erosion process. So these are the many names that I possibly can use in my exam question. So you better know what they mean. So now we are going to begin by learning of how water erosion happens. So of course, erosion by water must happen when you have enough rainfall. And they were going to continue to have these direct means of raindrops. So once you have raindrop, it will going to flow down along the hillside or wherever the landscape we have slope. So they were usually going to flow from high ground to low ground. That's natural because you have gravity. And they're going to create a few channels. Now these channels, they're not so deep, but you can actually see it because it will be slightly deeper. And we have name. We have to call it rill or gully. Now, they are also called channels. These two are actually channels. Difference is the size. Rills and gullies, they are water channels. The only difference is gully is massive, much, much bigger than the rills. Now, before I show you the pictures, I'm going to take you back on the three important steps. Okay, the three important steps that defines how water erosion happens. You see, when I say things slowly and repeatingly, that means something is going on, kan? So read my mind, yeah? Okay, so when rain erosion happens, it begins with rainfall. Because first thing first, once it's fall down from the sky, it will hit the soil first. So it's just like cannonball. Whoever who ride a motorcycle during rain, you feel the force of this of this so-called rainfall, because when it hits your body, it's as if like feels like stinging needle, and the needle sting your skin. Yeah, and it's exactly like that. I haven't feel one by myself, but I can understand lah. So first of all, when it hits the soil, it will detach the soil. That means the soil initially they are like aggregated in a whole clump. When it got hit by rainfall, it breaks up into smaller pieces. So when they breaks up, of course lah, they will detach and they come off. Okay? So that's step number one. And then after that, they will going to follow lah, see whether they splash. Sometimes the splash can they come off, water come down, and then they can have like a secondary detachment due to the hitting, the beating they call it, the beating of this rainfall. Yeah. And then once they come off, then what happened? You have rain. We have rain. The rain that actually accumulates into, if they have enough, volume, then they'll start flowing. Now, these flowing water bodies, we call it runoff. I think you also learned in water resource technology. Now, this is actually rainfall that moves along the horizon of the soil, and then they were going to carry whatever the soil particles that are light enough. Yeah, not all soil particles can be carried. If they are light, they can carry much farther away lah. Like clay. Clay is very light, so they can go very far. But if you're talking about gravel, very big stones, of course lah, they're going to stay along because they're very heavy, very dense. Yeah? So they will be like transported away with the moving rainwater. The speed you don't need to know, as long as you know they move away. So you see, this is the main reason why we call it erosion, like, because it start move along with the direction where the rainwater will going to flow to. So they carry the soil particles away. And then after that, at some places you're going to encounter some places where the flow of water may become slower. Under what situation the water will become slowly flowing is when you come to the ocean, for example. Why ocean the flow is very slow? Because it's already flat. There's no slope that you can go very fast. Kan? So when you go to any terrain, like any surface that are flat with no slope, the water will flow very slow. And then what happened? The heavier ones were going to sink. So when they sink, they will be deposited. Okay? They will be deposited, they fall down, and then that ends the entire erosion process. 3 steps: detachment, transportation, and deposition. 3 steps only. Yeah? Quite easy for you to remember. Kan? You see, these are the good things that will happen. Lah. I give you essay question that will be 6 marks exactly like that. But don't expect that to be that easy. Yeah? So this is the diagram to show you how the mechanics happen in terms of water erosion. So it hits, detach, and carries away until the low ground. Yeah. So I don't need to repeat one more time. And these are the things that, I think I jumped the guy. I should have referred to this slide. But anyway, it's the same thing. Yeah. 3 steps: detachment, transportation, and deposition. So because of that, I can skip like that. Okay, now, when the erosion happened, something happened to the soil. Because when you're carrying away clay, which is very light, clay moves away. It also may going to move away the lighter organic material. Now, if you still remember, these are the 2 very important materials or components in the soil that keeps the nutrient. Because clay, they're so small, high surface area, a lot of negative charge. If you have high clay, your CEC will be very high. The same with organic matter. If you have low organic matter, the CEC of your soil will be very high. And why CEC are so important? Because that is assumed like it's the capacity where you can store nutrient. The more CEC you have, the more nutrient it will contain. So you see the problem? Erosion will decrease the fertility because it moves away the CEC due to the loss of clay and also organic matter. And then when severe erosion occurs, it exposes underlying B and C horizon. So this is the continuation. Once the topsoil is gone, then you go deeper into subsoil. Subsoil is the clay or the deeper parts. Once it is exposed, then it will further expose whatever that is contained inside. And then what I want to put your attention is right here. The soil is typically more acidic. Do you know why it is more acidic? Because usually there is saying that subsoil, they contain a lot of minerals. And most of the time, these minerals, they may contain sulfur. Okay? Like it, nitrogen or sulfur. I don't think nitrogen is the major. I think the major ones will be the sulfur compound. And it's not surprising that a lot of minerals actually may contain sulfur, but the problem is when this sulfur is exposed to the air, it will be oxidized. Oxidation causes acidification. So they are acidic due to the oxidation of sulfur compound, for example. That's why they have become acidic. Now, this one will not happen if they are not exposed. They will only happen, they will become acidic when the soil is exposed. The subsoil is exposed to the air. So again, CEC is reduced, infiltration is very poor. So these are the continuation due to the erosion of the subsoil. And then you can see the entire thing. When all the soils are lost, then where are you going to stand? You stand on solid ground. So that's a problem. When erosion happens, God, it changes the landscape. Not only it changes the fertility of soil, it also changes the landscape. So you need land to stand on to build house, plant a lot of things. So those are the effects due to erosion. Now, we have several degrees. Now, what I show you just now, the 3 steps are actually the mechanics, the steps from 1, 2, until 3. How does it progress due to erosion? Now, what we're going to see right now is the degree of erosion. Now, a lot of students are mistaken that these are the steps, but no. These are the progression. How severe is the erosion on the soil surface? As you can see right here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 stages. 4 stages on the severity or the degree of erosion. It begins with sheet. Okay, so let's start. What is sheet erosion? Sheet is like, in Bahasa Melayu, we call it kepingan. So that means it gives you an impression that it happens on the flat surface. And it is true. Usually sheet erosion is the beginning of all erosion. It happens on flat lands. You cannot see it. It moves slowly. Water moves slowly due to the flatness of the surface. It will going to dissolve away a certain nutrient or also clay particles, but it does not significantly alter the landscape. So the landscape is still like that because it's flat, but you will suffer. If sheet erosion happens, it will bring away the nutrient, bring away the topsoil's nutrient, and also maybe some clay. So now there's a saying that it is widespread because why? Because you don't realize that it is happening. So that most of the time, when sheet erosion happens, it is not being addressed accordingly. Because why? Nobody knows that even there's a sheet erosion happen, but it does. Yeah? So this so-called sheet erosion is said to be like one of the most severe form of erosion, even more severe than the slope erosion actually, because there's no protection. Uh, you cannot do any alternatives or intervention to minimize the effect because you don't know it happened. Okay, but it happens a lot of time in Malaysia because why? We have a lot of rain, constant rain, and this is the one that actually caused all the erosion in Malaysia. Now, the last point. Apart from removal of topsoil, sheet erosion also result in soil compaction and the formation of impervious, not water permeable layer 2 to 6 centimeter below soil surface. Now, why do you think this won't happen? Yeah? Okay, I tell you simple. When you have sheet erosion, usually you have water logging. Water logging means takungan air. You have soil, very flat. Doesn't move too fast, right? Okay, so you have takungan air. Now what happened is that it will going to float the clay particles up first. So clay particles flows up, and then once they dry up, then what happened? All the heavier ones were going to sit below. Because why? Clay particles are so light, they are the last to deposit. Now, do you see the problem here? When all the clays are on top, that means they will cover every single hole that allows water to absorb in. Now, that is a problem because you know why? Remember, your soil also have worms, microorganisms. If that happens, then that kills all the organism. And what happened to your soil? That will going to reduce the ability to recycle nutrient. Okay, that's number one. And number two, when you cannot allow water to seep in, that will going to aggravate the erosion. See, sheet erosion happens like you don't notice it, but is quite damaging due to that because it will going to bring you to the second stage. It will aggravate the erosion and advance it to become more severe. So you cannot see anything then, but it's actually happening as long as you have enough rainfall. So when this sheet erosion becomes more severe, it will going to develop some channels, small channels. We call it rill. So just now remember rill. Rill is like the size of a small longkang. It's just it does not flow like in a very straight manner, like zigzag, just like lah kan. So these are due to the preferential flow. Now, when you have soil, now this soil, they are not uniform. Kan? There are some places where you have roots. Those areas that have roots are the areas that is relatively stable because root hold the soil and they are not easily carried away due to erosion. So most likely this rill is developed due to water flowing in between the roots. So that's why the zigzag, they never flow straight unless you are like very high slope. Right? So they develop due to preferential flow. Now, this one will slowly develop, especially when you have hillside. I think this is normal site whenever you go to highway, new highways, for example, or new housing development. So all these small channels, there's a name. We call it reels, yeah, not longkang, real. You need to answer in English, yeah, in exam. So slowly they develop. Once grill becomes bigger, they becomes gully. Now this gully is like World War II. I think a lot of you who watched World War One or World War II, they all stay in a trench. So exactly that size, only wider. I mean, trench is horrendous because they're so narrow, but gullies, they actually is a bigger channel like all your big longkangs in Klang Valley with all those dirty water. Kan? But these are due to the result of erosion. So you can see all the size of these gullies, they're actually falling apart due to the extensive erosion that happens. So they all spread, and then this one becomes bigger. Of course, I mean, this gully will eventually going to develop. If they can develop further, they become river. They, but not all becomes river because you're developing from this landscape. Yeah, I mean the water source has to come from somewhere. Now, it's quite safe to say this kind of landscape is exactly what you see in 1990s. I know you haven't born yet, but during my age and as school kids, this is what I see every single day because 1990s is the year where all mining activities, tin mining activities in Malaysia stopped. They don't have forests, they only have sand, and this is exactly what I saw when I was a kid. So just to bring you back again, the severity and the development of the severity of the erosion, it begins with sheet erosion where you have all those rills, and then it developed bigger into gullies, and then finally it may become a river.